So this week's mostly going to be about, including style into your artwork, right? Having a strong visual direction. Um, so when we talk about art direction, you'll have an art director and an art direction. Usually, what that means is the look that you're trying to create cohesively across the entire work, whether it be a comic or animated feature film or graphic novel or whatever you're making. It's the idea that it's supposed to be this overarching visual language that you're producing. Okay. Um, and if you don't have that, it'll start to be jarring that things will sort of like not, it won't meld together. Just like you have, unity is one of the uh, principles of design. You want things to come together and homogenize so that it feels as one whole piece. Um, you want that to happen also in your art direction. So it's very important. Typically in a production, you will usually have like one art director, and he or she will kind of design a lot of the elements, and then any subsequent designers under them will try to match what they're making and make sure that it shares the same visual language. So a good example is something that I worked on here. A couple of months ago, they were making a Lord of the Rings flip book. It's supposed to be the largest flip book of all time, or whatever. And basically, what they did is that you would get a shot that everyone would submit shots, and then you would on a specific type of flip book paper. It's like 2 inches by 3 inches. By the way, it's kind of small. It's like when you think flip book, it's a flip book. Um, and then everyone would create their own shots, and then they were going to cut the entire film, like however long, it's 2.5 hours, or however long it is, the whole thing. So it should be coming out shortly, I think. I don't know how they're going to present this. But you can see there's a whole variety of looks, right? It looks super cool. Very neat. These are obviously like really good um versions of it. This is mine over here. If you wanted to see what I did. So I did yellow ochre, and then I just did like charcoal pencil. Um but what you'll notice is that as cool as each shot is, it is a little jarring because you kind of jump from one to the next to the next to the next. And I appreciate that. And I think it works in short form like this okay. But what I noticed is that you don't actually pay attention to the story or what's going on at all because the style is so dramatically changed from one to the next. Um, and I am curious to see how it works long form. I can't see it possibly being that successful. But I mean, I do think it's a really cool project, and I was happy to do it. But um, anyway, keep an eye out for it. It might be cool. Another example of just different styles, but over an entire production, are short films. I worked on a film that was in the Tribeca Film Festival in 2018. There were only 8 animated films that were accepted into it. I only have 6 of them here. I don't know which ones I'm missing. There was one I really liked that I'm missing, but I don't remember what the name of it is, and I don't remember the other one. But basically, these were short films that were accepted. You can see Bao from Pixar was in it, and Cartoon Saloon. The Cartoon Saloon did. They're a 2D animation, like an international 2D animation studio. They did like Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea, Breadwinner. Um, they, a lot of like basically just feature length, animated films. So obviously they're a very large studio. These ones are smaller ones. These were animators from Leica, that does stop motion like Coraline and that sort of stuff. I forget who this was. I met this guy. I don't think they had they had a representative, but they did not, I don't believe. But anyway, this was ours. But what you're going to notice is that if you look at all of these, right, they all have a unique, different style, and the entirety of the films have those styles. And it's visually interesting because they're all different. You know what I mean? And that's fun. But within it, they're each one is consistently throughout the entirety of the film that style. For ours, for example, we had like a kind of the main director guy. He basically did a lot of the artwork, and then that was what we used as more or less the inspiration for our work as we worked on it. So we had basically one main person, and then everyone just built from that person to make sure that it matched, right? So that he created the visual language that we all followed. Um, what really matters with style, and the main thing I kind of want to get here with my thesis statement is that it's not really what you're drawing so much as it's how you're drawing it. Okay. And what I mean by that is if you're like, oh, I always draw characters and they have like no mouths, right? Like it's a Dilbert or something. Or I always draw characters and they have little arms, or all my characters have round heads. That's not really a style. That's just a thing that you're drawing all the time, right? Um, like if I always draw my eyes really big. Well, what if you have a character that's supposed to have small eyes? Like that doesn't work anymore, right? Or you put it, oh, I always draw really skinny characters. Well, what if you got a character that's like working out? Like that doesn't really work. You can say these are all cone characters, right? But each one is produced differently and has a different visual language. They all have a different style applied, right? This is very linear cutout style. This is kind of more painterly. This is obviously pixel. This is sort of a digital painter kind of charcoal looking thing, or pastel, I should say. Um, so it's more about that and less about like, oh, my characters always have like this mouth. And I'll sometimes see students and they'll do that. And it's like you're just drawing the same, you basically have memorized how to produce something that might be visually appealing, but there's no variation in it. And you couldn't make that work across like an entire production. So a good example is Gorillas. I like if you're familiar with Gorillas. Basically, that started off as sort of like this animator and the lead singer Blur, I don't know his name, basically came together like, hey, what if we make a band, but there won't be any like, there won't be a rock star. There'll just be, these made up characters that they produce here. Um, and they ended up making like a music video that came out and it was very successful. And as much as their music is good, a big part of their success has been the animation. It's a really strong, cool style, particularly the older stuff. I'm not as big a fan of the new stuff, but um, that became, very popular and they're appealing and unique and it's interesting. What I want to show you is, they all clearly all work together as one solid style. But what you're going to notice is that there isn't like a feature that they all have. Like if I look at like his eyes, right? Oh, they're just black holes. Kind of what hers are. But if you look at, he's got eyes with pupils, like look kind of almost like a normal eye. He has no pupils at all. They're just straight up white. You may be like, oh, well, they have like a snub nose, right? So like these two do, but he don't. His is like a kind of a, I don't know what you call that shape, right? It's like a squash or something, right? Or like, oh, they have pointy chins, right? He has a pointy chin. She doesn't. He doesn't. He doesn't. Right? So there isn't like an element that one has. Like, oh, they're always long and lanky. He's not long and lanky. There is no element that is like, oh, all the characters have the same hands or they all have the same noses or something, right? They have different head shapes, they have different proportions, right? There's a certain amount of quality to them where like, they keep very clean, almost flat graphical, just S and C curves, which is good design. Um, uh, you know, the posing tends to be sort of flat as well. Very strong silhouettes. Um, you know, so there is a visual language and there's a consistency about the way that they're handled, right? They all have a strong weight of line, particularly on the outside. There's things that we can identify that are like common elements throughout all of them, but there isn't like the eyes are drawn away. It's more the way that the eyes are handled that's what is creating the style. Hopefully that makes sense. So I just don't want you guys to be like, oh, I always draw my mouth this way. Don't do that, because that's just not. It's not really a style. All right. Um, so one of the things that probably has happened for you, and it's happened definitely for me as well, is that if we look at your current style, such as it is, you probably have noticed that it's highly influenced by something, right? That's probably why you're in this, right? You either watch cartoons, or you read comics, or you know, uh, read graphic novels, or you really like, poster designs or something. Um, so you might have been really into those, and you probably, especially as a child, I know like myself, probably drew what those were, right? So I drew a lot of like Ninja Turtles and X-Men and things like that. And that sort of helped kind of influence my artwork to some degree. I was really big into Disney, so I was trying to copy the Disney style. And to some degree, that's good. I mean, it's good to have inspirations and you want to have those. Um, uh and that's completely normal and that's why you're doing it, right? Otherwise, why would you have, if there wasn't something to spark that interest. And you will see this amongst others as well. So famous people, so like Tim Burton's a really obvious one. Everybody knows Tim Burton. If you look at his 2D or 3 or stop motion animations, you can totally tell that is Tim Burton right off the bat, right? He's got a really strong Gothic style. There's usually a strong textural component. It doesn't have like clean lines generally. There's usually thin, scraggly ness in it. Very strong silhouettes, high exaggeration, right? So like really thin arms, but then these really wide things. Typically a lot of sharp shapes. His a large part of his influence was actually Edward Gorey, which you probably don't know. Maybe you do. Um, but he was just an illustrator, and he did a lot of kind of goth style things, real Tim Burton or Tim Burton like him, unsaturated colors, gothic style, sharp edges, things like that, highly textural. And you can definitely, if you look at his work, you can definitely say how that is a direct influence on to Tim Burton, right? If we look at John Lasseter, who used to be kind of the main Pixar guy, he was highly influenced by Disney. And if you look at like Pixar stuff, there is a really strong influence of Disney on Pixar. Obviously, they're part of Pixar now, but they originally weren't. They were originally owned by um, George Lucas, who sold it to Steve Jobs, and then Steve Jobs sold it to Disney. So anyway, uh, it's going through the paces here, but Lasser was kind of the one that really kind of drove the artistic influences and the stylistic choices, um, utilizing basically his knowledge from Disney, right? And a good example of this is that he directed Cars. And when you look at most cars, they actually will do the eyeballs where the headlights are, right? It's kind of a typical, obvious thing. He did it on the windshield, and his influence was Little Blue Coupe, which was a short by Disney. It's kind of a cute little short. I remember that one when I was a kid. Um, but you can definitely see there's a direct influence of that to this, okay? Um, and so it's good to be influenced. Just make sure that, you do some sort of iteration on it, that it is in some way your own. Okay. Another example here is anime. Um, so you may or may not know this, but the Fleischer brothers had Betty Boop, that they had designed Betty Boop. But actually, the design was from Grim Natwick, who worked there. I think he started Disney first, but then he ended up going to Fleischer's, I believe, or something like that, or vice versa. Can't remember. Um, but he designed Betty Boop. If you look at Betty Boop, that is actually Osamu Tezuka actually designed Astro Boy based off of her. And you probably didn't know that, but if you look at the two, you can kind of see it now, can't you? See a lot of the similarities. There's definitely differences, right? But he was highly influenced by Betty Boop. He liked the design, and subsequently he came up with Astro Boy, who's kind of considered the foundation of like the anime style. And then if you ever watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, not Avatar, the crappy James Cameron films, um, uh, you if you see that, that's an American made animation, but obviously highly influenced by anime. So it kind of has come kind of full circle, right? And so, you know, uh, we have influenced anime has influenced us, and other cultures as well. So it, but you'll see that every time, obviously, there's a bit of an iterative um, change each time, right? So I mean, it's not like it's the same thing. Um, so it's good to be influenced. You just want to make sure you're not doing the exact same thing, because sometimes I'll see students and what they'll do is they'll be like, I really like Warner Brothers, and they'll do a bunch of Warner Brothers styles. Or I really like Disney, and they'll do a bunch of Disney. Or I really like this anime or manga. That's actually the one that's typically the largest issue. Um, and the problem is there's a million people that are already doing that style. It doesn't make you unique. You may or may not know this, but Tim Burton started at Disney. If you look at this, it doesn't make you think Disney, right? Nightmare Before Christmas was a Disney movie. Um, may or may not knew that either. But the reason why they hired him wasn't because of his like great animation like abilities, is because he had a strong style. So having a strong style will make you stand out. So absolutely be influenced by Disney and Warner Brothers and Ghibli or whoever. Absolutely. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is make sure that you're doing something of your own with it. Put yourself into it and change it in some way. You don't want to just make the same stuff as everybody else. it is a good exercise to be able to copy, because if you go to work in a production, you want to be able to match what they're doing, right? If you can only, like, if you think about it, like, can you picture Tim Burton going through and like animating Bambi? Not really, right? I feel like he would really struggle. Um, so, he had a vision and he had a style, but obviously he also wouldn't be able to fit in most productions. He's more of a director type style situation. Okay. Um, Now, probably also at this point, you might be like, I don't have a style. This is one of those things that just over time will develop. I kind of have a style. I don't have a even personally don't think I have a super strong style. Um, but it is one of those things that like over time you'll start to develop. You just got to keep working at it, and then you'll eventually kind of find your way. It will just naturally progress. What you don't want to do is try to push it and be like, oh, I'm gonna always do. That's when you end up doing drawing things always the same way, because you might find something like, oh, this looks unique and different, and then you'll keep trying to do that. Instead of trying to draw that same thing, that same element, try to do the same process to draw another version of it. you know you're gonna have a lot better uh, results doing that. This is something my daughter drew. I always find that children's drawings are often like the most creative because they're not as constrained by reality as others. As we get older and we start to like learn how to like this is the proper way. So it says, I can see the kitten. What up, kitten? And then you can see she drew the front and she drew the back of the kitten. I saw that. I was like, this is great. So anyway, um, so yeah, just realize it's something that you will develop, but also it's not a terrible idea to try and match others. Just don't get down that rabbit hole and like invest too much in it. Be influenced, but not dominated by.